Hello everyone and welcome to this online training session around communication on and off the field of play. This is essentially a recording from our live session that was held previously, and the session is sort of targeted towards our grassroots match officials, that's level 5 and below. However, we have added one or two little bits in here for those level 4s listening and watching that might be a benefit to them. So as we go through, there might be some parts which you think this is a bit too basic for me. Why is it here? But as you'll see, we'll build on it as we go through, and hopefully you'll take some bits of use from it. So the first thing is, what do we mean by communication? And for this, we're looking at both the on-field and also the off-field part of it. So thinking about on-field, when we talk about communication, we talk about how do we engage with players, managers, spectators. How do we communicate our decisions? Do we use our whistle to back up a signal? Do we make sure we've got clear arm signals at all times? How does that look? But then also off the field of play, when we're looking at how do we communicate with our clubs and our leagues in the build up to a match, as well as our assistant referees and observers. So some bits we're going to cover in the session. So looking at before the game, so what are you going to be doing if you're running late, if the weather's poor? How do you know who you're going to be working with and how you're going to communicate with them? As well as a little bit around boardrooms. Some of you haven't had the opportunity to go into a boardroom yet because of the level you officiate at. But those who certainly run the line on supply leagues, so the Essex Senior League and the Eastern Counties League, you would have definitely been into boardrooms. So we're going to look at a little bit of that. During the game, some managing basic match situations to enhance control. So we've got a couple of clips to look at where we'll look at different ways a referee can communicate during a game to enhance their match control. Then after the game, looking at how we can deal with managers and coaches who might be a little bit irate, a little bit confrontational, as well as boardrooms. Again, they can be quite hostile places after a game, particularly if a club aren't the biggest fan of you on that day. So before the game, we've got a roadmap here, which this is one of those ones where you're probably looking at it thinking this is a bit too basic for me. Why is it being included? But it's really, really important that we do mention these basic steps. You should be surprised at how many people aren't aware of them and end up causing problems not only for themselves but also sort of the leagues as well in terms of sort of admin nightmare. So the first step you need to be doing in preparation for your game is giving your availability, so open and close dates. So leagues do this in different ways. So I know when you get to the high levels of the game, we've got a system called MOAS, so basically an online calendar where we can mark when we can and can't do a game. Other leagues might use similar sort of things. Stuff like pitch side refs is one which has come up quite a few times in the past. Or it might be a simple fact where the referee point officer will phone you up on a Monday night and say, "Are you available for a game this weekend?" And that will be you giving your availability. So that's where you're giving it. You then get the communication through from your referee appointment officer by email, text, phone call, whatever it might be, saying, "Seen you available this weekend. Can you do the game?" Which the key thing here, which we want to reiterate, is before you even accept that game, you look at how you're going to get there. Quite a lot of you potentially don't drive. You might be under 17, so you're relying on mum, dad, aunt, uncle, whoever it might be, to take you to your fixtures. There's no point in accepting a fixture if you've not checked with them and then get you to the game. I know certainly from our end, at a county perspective, it can be a bit of frustration when we appoint county games. Referees say, "Yeah, we can do that game," and then a couple of days later they come back saying, "No, can't do it. Mum and dad are away for the weekend. Got no way of getting there." And the same applies for the leagues. They'll get just as frustrated if you pick up a game with them, and then a couple of days later you come off it because you can't actually get there. So check you can get to a game before you actually accept it, which is where this next icon comes along, where you then go back and you accept that appointment. And it goes into your diary, into your calendar, your phone, whatever it might be. So you're ready for that game ahead. We've then got your route. So how many of you actually look at your route before you go to a game? Whether it's a ground you're familiar with or not familiar with, you should always be looking at where you're going to go in advance. That way, if it's a bit of a longer route than expected, you can leave a bit earlier. Similarly, if there's roadworks en route, you're aware of it in advance. Because we expect everyone to be at their games at least half hour before at grassroots, maybe more depending on the level. So if you've gotten lost because you weren't quite sure where you're going, that's really not an excuse. Because in advance you should be looking at what that route looks like, so you can get there on time and a suitable time before kick-off. As we get a little bit closer to match day, you then, particularly at grassroots level, you might get a text or a phone call from the home team. Might be the manager, might be the secretary, whoever it might be, confirming the game. Where obviously they'll want to confirm, the kickoff time, the ground, the venue, two teams involved, potentially what time you're going to be there, so they can sort of expect you. And again, this is probably going to be your first bit of contact with these teams. So it's really important that you set that good first positive impression, which we'll come on to a little bit later on. So after that, you then come to match day, where how many of you actually have the contact details for the club in your phones before travelling. It's really, really important that if you are stuck in traffic or you're running late, whatever it might be, that you have that information to hand. Because again, if you turn up 5 minutes before kickoff and say to the manager, "Oh, sorry, we didn't quite know where the ground was," they won't be very impressed. Whereas if you're stuck in traffic, for example, whereas if you phone them 45 minutes before kickoff saying, "Hi, I'm going to be late, stuck in traffic, be with you as soon as I can," it's that way. If you do turn up 5 minutes before kickoff, they're already expecting that, so it won't be too much of a shock for them. And then the final thing on this one, certainly at grassroots level, is when you arrive at a game, make sure you go to sort of an easy identifiable sort of hub, as it were, so you can check in and make people aware that you're there. So this could be the tea hut, it could be changing rooms, whatever the club might have. Just make sure you go. There's a first point of call, and make someone at the club aware that you are there at the game. So in that way, if for whatever reason the manager can't find you, the club can say, "Oh no, the referee was here." And they've sort of got that evidence with them. So that's it in terms of a grassroots perspective. In the more semi-professional game, not much changes. That top line process is still the case. However, when the teams contact you in advance before the game, you'll no longer get a text. You're more likely to get an email, which again we'll touch on in a moment. Why it's really important to have stuff like appropriate email addresses and how you respond to those emails in an appropriate way. Because again, it's going to be another time when the club's going to, this is going to be their first interaction with you. So it's really, really important to have that good first positive impression. So from there, something a little bit different might happen from your end. Once you've had that email, just think about how you're going to communicate with your team of three. So, when you start to go higher up the ladder, you'll be the referee working with two assistant referees, or you'll be the assistant referee as part of a team of three. So think about how you communicate with them. Do you drop them a text? Do you send them an email? Do you pick up the phone? I know for me personally, if it's two officials I've not worked with before, I'll send them an email, make it a bit more professional. Whereas if it's two that I've worked with, we've got a relationship between the three of us, we know each other quite well, it will be a text message or a WhatsApp, just it's a little bit more informal because we've already built up that relationship prior. And again, similarly here in terms of on match day, you want to decide on a place to meet. So as the referee, you might say, "Okay, I'll meet you in the changing rooms at 1:30. Or if you're doing joint travel, you might say, "I'll meet you at X place at 1:00 to pick them up and all travel together." So like I said, really important that these steps are followed. Particularly from a county perspective. When we're looking at doing county cup fixtures. The last thing we want is to appoint someone to a game, to then come back and say, "Oh, no, I can't get there anymore," and we've then got to find a replacement. So yeah, real admin headache. You might look at it and think this is a bit too much effort for me, but at the same time, it makes everybody's lives a lot easier if you've got this process in place and you are organised on top of your admin. So in terms of the pre-match confirmation, so we've got a couple of real-life emails that have been sent. So these aren't ones that we've made up; they're ones which are actually sort of real emails. So we're going to take a look at these and see what's good about them, what might not be so good about them, and sort of take some points away from there for ourselves. So this is our first example. This is an email confirmation from a club to the match referee. So the email here, we're not too concentrating on the content of the email, but it's more around the to box. So if you look at the referee's email address, redcardref@referee.com. So thinking about your own personal email addresses that you use, do you think your email address is suitable to essentially represent you as a referee? Because whether you know it or not, your email address is the first thing which clubs will use to sort of form an opinion of you. So if you've got the email address redcardref@referee.com, the first thing these clubs are going to think, "Oh, this ref's a bit card happy. We're going to have a couple of players sent off," and they're going to have that preconceived idea before you even step foot on the pitch. You might be the sort of referee that likes to manage the game and don't really give out too many cards, but they've already got this preconceived idea that you're going to send some players off because that's what your email address says. So really, really important that you have a suitable email address. myself and Lucas could go down a list of referees on whole game and pick out all the email addresses which are similar to this. And it'd be clear that some people just don't often think about their email address in advance. So really important that you pick an appropriate email address for anything to do with refereeing. We've then got our first response. So our referee has responded to the club secretary saying, "Thanks, mate." Nothing more than that. So the impression this would give to a club now is that this referee doesn't really care. He's quite laid back, not too fussed, not very professional. Because again, how can you call someone your mate if you've never met them before? Or you might have met them once. So again, thinking about that appropriate language to use when communicating with that sort of club secretary or team manager, whoever it might be. We've then got this one. So, "Hi secretary, thanks for your confirmation. Look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Hopefully the game will be better than last time." So again, another sort of negative email, because you're starting to comment on what happened at the game last time. In this case, the game that this referee was involved in wasn't of the best quality. So they're saying, hopefully this week will be better than last time. So already, the clubs are thinking, well, this referee's already said he didn't like refereeing as last time. So is it going to be any different this time round? So even if it was the most boring game in the world last time, you try and refrain from commenting on it, because again, you'll give those clubs that idea in advance that you might not be fully up for the game. Then got this one here, a little bit of a wordier one. So thank you so much for confirming. Really looking forward to coming back to Team A for the game this Saturday. Looked after so well last time, and your boys played well for an enjoyable game. I'm sure the top of the table clash will be brilliant to be part of, and I look forward to refereeing it. Can't wait to see you Saturday. So from a positive perspective, it shows the referee is keen. They're genuinely looking forward to refereeing the game that they've got this weekend. However, the thing to be aware of is that how this comes across to clubs. This could potentially come across as a little bit over the top. Clubs don't really care if you thought it was a really enjoyable game last time, or if you're looking forward to a top of the table clash. They want to know that you're going to be there, you're going to be professional, and you're going to give them the best performance possible. So although it's polite, think about that over the top part of it. The clubs, particularly at the high level, start to mark referees based on club marks. So one of those clubs might see this as, the referee's just trying to get higher club marks out of us by being sort of overly nice. So again, take that into account as well. You want to be nice and polite, but you don't want to be too over the top when confirming with that club. We've then got this one here. So this one's obviously taken into account any poor weather at this moment in time. So hopefully the weather will be getting better. However, should you need a pitch inspection, please let me know, and I'll be more than happy to help where possible. The team and I will be looking to arrive 1:30 p.m. I look forward to seeing you on Saturday. So this is a good example. Thanking them for the email, confirming what time they're going to be at the ground. Really, really important. You don't want clubs, hanging around waiting for you to think, where's our referee? So it's good to let them know what time you're aiming to be there for. But also, the referees taking into account, pitch inspections aren't at the best at the moment. In terms of the weather, so a pitch inspection might be needed. So this referee is saying here that if you need a pitch inspection, please let them know, and they'll be more than happy to do it themselves, or find another referee to come do that pitch inspection for them. So again, from a first impression point of view, the club's thinking, this referee's quite organised. They've got a time for when they're going to arrive at the ground, but also they're quite helpful in that if we need an inspection, that they'll be happy to try and help them sort it out. And we've then got our final one. So again, nice and simple. Team and I are looking forward to being with you for about 1:30. If you need anything further from us, please let us know. Look forward to seeing you Saturday. So again, nice and clear, and to the point as well. So it's you're saying to the secretary, you'll be there at 1:30. If you need anything else from us, let us know. But if not, we look forward to seeing you on Saturday. So from a club perspective, that's quite a positive email. It's really informative, but also giving the club the option to go back to that match official if they need to, if they need any further information. So it's really, really important how you make that first bit of communication with those clubs, even if it's via text message. Still try and be as formal as possible, and similarly when you're on the phone, obviously try and be as formal, polite as you possibly can. Okay, so pre-match communication. So your pre-match communication isn't just about how you communicate with clubs and sort of the teams and the build-up, is how you communicate with your team of officials as well. So we've got a quick video here of Michael Oliver, who, as I'm sure you're all aware, is a Premier League referee, and this is sort of his pre-match team talk to his team of assistants. Have a little look, and see if you think this is good. Pick out some good things, and we can go from there.
Right, lads, Udo, welcome to the team. If you want to jump in at any point, feel free to do so. Obviously, Stuart, you're number one, so dugout sides, and home team studs and jury, and Dan far side, and away team studs and jury. All right. I know we work together a lot of times through the season, certainly every week, Stuart, but I think it's important, with the importance of the game and the stage of the season, just to recap everything that we need to do and make sure we're singing up on the same page. We spoke a lot in the hotel about styles of play and patterns of play and how they'll set up and all that sort of stuff. West Ham are very much like we thought they would be in terms of personnel and formation, and the same with Stoke. Stoke will play with 5 at the back, or 3 at the back, when you look at it. But like we said about Arnautovic being the most focal point for West Ham forward, same with Stoke with Miram Diouf, and we talked about the offside point potential for all of that sort of stuff we use. As we said, West Ham will dominate the possession. Stoke will be happy to sit in. Stoke will look to break when they get a chance with Diouf and Shaqiri, and also Bauer will bomb down the side on the right hand side, primarily as opposed to Peters on the left. But start the game the way we always start the game. All right. So in terms of the technical stuff, in terms of throw-ins, corner kicks, goal kicks, balls in and out of play, there's an expectation because of where the ball goes out that you make a decision, not me. All right, because of that area in front of you. If that's the expectation in the field and the stadium, and make a decision and let me follow up after that. As it comes away from you as an expectation, generally I'll make a decision as it goes away from you. Alright, so feed in what information you've got, which either stops us getting a decision wrong or having to turn my decision around. But let me go first, then give us a backup flag after that, as you would do normally if required. In terms of fouls, misconduct, you know how I operate, and that I'll ask you to referee that area in front of you verbally down the headsets. Do that. If it's big and visible and needs a flag, then be big and visible with a flag. If it comes away from you, I'll ask you to let me do it. Again, feed in the information you've got, but let me make a decision as it comes away from you, unless it's a world-changing, game-changing decision that you need to feed in on. All right.
So you've all just watched that clip of Michael Oliver. Hopefully you'd all agree this is an example of a good sort of pre-match talk. He's covering such as what he's expecting of his assistant referees, which is probably the most important thing. It's really important to set out to your assistants, what do you expect them from the games, and that way there's no surprises during the actual 90 minutes. So it's one of the key things here that Michael's picked up on is around the expectation of them as an assistant referee for stuff like fouls. So he's mentioned to the fact, if there's a foul right in front of them, and the expectation of the stadium, the expectation of the players is that assistant referee is going to give that foul, and Michael will then come in as the referee after. So that might be something similar that you do with your assistants. You might say to them, if there's a foul in front of you, by all means come in and give it, and then you'll back them up after. So again, some of you might only work with neutral assistant referees once a year on a cup final, be that for a league or for county cup. But again, I'd recommend putting together some sort of tick sheet for you to carry around on match day, so you can make sure you cover everything you want to cover with your neutral assistant referees. Obviously, you don't want to be doing this sort of thing with club assistants. So if you've got a substitute, a manager, a parent, whoever it might be, as your assistant referee, you don't want to be going into this sort of detail. But I would definitely recommend having some sort of list of things you want to cover with your pre-match. So if you're not too sure on what sort of stuff to cover, drop myself or Lucas an email, and we can send you over what we personally include. And then obviously if you want to change it, or if you want to get some thoughts from other people, you're more than welcome to. So the other thing that Michael included in his pre-match, which can be of use at times, is a little bit of research on the clubs. So he said to them, how the clubs are going to set up in terms of formations, and how sort of to expect it from there. So sometimes it's good to go into these team talks with an idea of what the players are like, which players are often the troublemakers or the top goal scorers or get cautioned quite a lot. It might be interesting to go in that sort of information, but at the same time you've got to be conscious that you don't want to be having these preconceived ideas about the players. Because if a player that gets cautioned every single week, for example, you might go into the game thinking, well, he gets cautioned every week, so I'll have to caution this week as well. When that might not be the case, there might be a completely different player that day. But again, useful to have that little bit of information hand just in case. So in terms of review for that little section, so the key things are be organised. Administration is really, really key within refereeing. Make sure you're on top of your admin, as it will give you that good positive first impression with those clubs, those teams, those players, and that sort of stuff. Communicate with the right people at the right time. So, so looking at that club secretary or the manager, whoever it might be, make sure you give them the right sort of communication at the right time as well. So, you might get an email from a club on a Monday. Don't leave it to the Friday night to reply to them. Reply to them as soon as you can. Again, think about that first positive impression. but then also how you communicate in pre-match sets you up for the game. So if you've got a structured pre-match talk, that should hopefully mean your whole game will be more organised, a lot more structure to it. Meaning it'll be a lot easier for you to manage the game, and obviously have a positive outcome as a result of it. So during the game, so this section is going to be all about managing the small situations in order to prevent big situations from occurring or escalating. So it's all about clear communication in order to sell your decisions. So a little bit about preventive communication. What do we mean by this? So it's about warning players. Warn them about getting a caution, where it might just be to calm them down in quite a heated situation. To prevent fouls, obviously some fouls will happen no matter what. Players will commit fouls, and we can't really change that. However, through preventive communication, we could prevent some of these fouls from happening, particularly the smaller ones. And then also to make it look like you're watching. We've all been in situations where we've had a not very interesting game to referee in front of us, and we've been standing there refereeing, thinking, oh yeah, how much longer till half time? How much longer till full time? But think about how that looks for clubs. If you're constantly looking at your watch and how long it's going to be, they're going to think you look disinterested. So sometimes a bit of preventive communication keeps you awake and keeps you switched on to the game, but also makes it like you are still watching, even if it's a really dull game. So we've got a couple of clips here. I think we've got about 8 in total, which we're going to run through. You've got them separately on the Google Drive link. So we're going to play them through on here. But if you want to take another look at them on the Google Drive link, whilst we're doing it at the same time, please feel free to do so. And obviously pause this recording throughout if you need to. So this is our first recording. Perfect. So thinking about the communication point of view on this one here. So, positives, strong whistle from the referee. Everyone's fully aware that it's a foul in the referee's opinion. However, from a spectator point of view, what's he given? Is he given a penalty? Is he given a free kick? We're not too sure. The referee is sure it's penalty. He thinks it's a blatant penalty. But think about what does everyone else think. So really, really important for us as referees that we could think it's the most blatant free kick, blatant throw in the world, but some people might be on the other side of the pitch, might be a couple of seats up in the stand, wherever you might be, and you've got to try and communicate this decision to everyone that's watching, no matter where they are, who they are. So as much as it might be a bit of a boring task to do, to signal for every single thing you give, really, really important to help sell that decision and make it clear to everyone what decision you've given. Otherwise, this referee here could have quite easily have had players running over and say, "Oh, ref, that's a free kick, isn't it? It's not a penalty." Because they might think it is a free kick rather than a penalty, and causing you a little bit more grief than what you could have done if you'd actually given that signal in the first place. Clip number 2, bit of a familiar ground to all.
90s. Well, yeah, we're trying a few different names, didn't we? Disgraceful challenge after the ball went. It's got nothing to do with it. All right, referee, out the whistle. Blow the whistle. That's it, Andy. That's it.
Cool, so we'll pause it there because it's quite a long clip. But the purpose of this clip is around how can we potentially prevent things from escalating. So in the build up to this mass confrontation, you saw two fouls, very, very soft fouls, albeit. But this is where, as referees, you think, how can you protect yourself as match officials? How can you try and keep your match control and not jeopardise it? At times, it could be by picking out those soft free kicks. So if you look at the 2 fouls in the build-up to the mass confrontation, where were they on the field of play? They weren't in an attacking situation. They're quite central along the halfway line. So if you give a soft free kick there, no one's going to be complaining because it's not going to be, it's not going to set up a shot on goal or whatever it might be. So if things are getting heated, use your whistle essentially and your knowledge of around what law is and what a foul is, and get in there early and give those potentially soft free kicks, but ones which could then prevent this mass confrontation from happening in the first place. But looking at the mass confrontation here, the referee's tried to calm the game down using his whistle, make the players stop from that sense. He's seen it's not worked, so he stopped blowing his whistle. He's then got into a good, credible position to try and watch the mass confrontations. That way he can issue the red and yellow cards that are necessary once it has all calmed down. Okay, so in this clip here, obviously, we've seen a player go over the top of the goalkeeper. Goalkeeper's got a little bit frustrated, and the referee's gone over to sort it out. So the key thing from this clip is that has the referee blown their whistle? Have you heard the referee blow his whistle? And the reason why that's really important is that at this moment in time, whilst all this is going on, the referee's not actually stopped to get the play, which means as per law, the goalkeeper's now held the ball for more than 6 seconds, which is now an indirect free kick, potentially a caution, depending on what you think as the referee. So it's gone from the goalkeeper having a soft foul on him to now having an indirect free kick and a caution given against him. So really, really important. Everyone can see something's happened with the goalkeeper. Protect the goalkeeper in those situations. And give that soft free kick. There's definitely a free kick in this one. The goalkeeper's not very happy with it, so blow the whistle, stop play, and that way it should prevent anything else from occurring, because everyone's saying, oh, referee's seen it, the referee's dealing with it. But looking at the actual communication of the referee as well, the referee seemed very, very aggressive. Lots of finger pointing, and was getting very close to players' faces. So again, think about how you're going to interact with players on these situations where temperatures are a little bit high, people are a little bit frustrated, and think about how that looks to everyone else watching the game and everyone else that's involved in the game.
Again, the Spartans looking to get dominance here. Saunders here got the counter-attack. Saunders versus Green. Green's going to take up. Green, he's just shouldered him on the ball, and Green is going to get a red card here because he's thrown the ball at the referee. Green's got away with it then because he threw the ball at the referee.
Okay, so in this clip here, you've got obviously a player running down the wing. He's then been fouled, very soft foul albeit, but he's been fouled nonetheless. Referee's given the foul, and the Blythe player's then thrown the ball at the referee as an act of dissent. So this one here, think about how you can be preventative in stopping that sort of situation from occurring. So is the referee shouting at arms down, no foul, wherever it might be, to prevent the player from committing that foul on the yellow player. Because if he has and then gives the free kick, everyone else can say, well, refs warned you. Referee said keep your arms down. You still you've not done it. It's not always going to be the case, but then that could prevent that player getting frustrated and throwing the ball down, because that's now resulting in a yellow card being issued, and obviously at the grassroots game, that player in the sin bin for 10 minutes or 8 minutes if they're under 18. So think about how you can prevent that caution in the first place. This player might have thrown as a referee, you might have been shouting and screaming all game, saying arms down, whatever it might be, and the player's still throwing the ball down. Nothing you can do about that. Because that way you can still sell to all the players, saying, look, I've tried to warn the player about keeping their arms down, and he's then throwing the ball as a result. So make sure you've got everything in your power to try and prevent something from happening. So that way, if it does happen, you can say, well, I've warned you, I've told you. And that way you should get less dissent as a result of that. 9 times out of 10 anyway.
From the online shot, as Walshaw takes the ball down, gives it to Luke Dean. Dean surging forward into the area. No, he's not. Just in and out of it. Over on the right hand side. Here's Tom White. Has got on his man. Tom White gets the ball, drives the near post, clear behind for a corner.
Of course, this clip here, a little bit further up north than what we're used to. But the key thing here is, around how the referees communicated that decision. It's blatantly obvious it's a corner, no doubt about that. However, how's the referee communicated that? What's their arm signals been like? In this example here, I think the the referee has made up his new own version of a corner kick signal. It's very low to the floor, almost looks like a goal kick to a certain extent. And again, that impression that gives the spectators, obviously, by the looks of stuff behind the goal alone, there's quite a few people there watching. So if you're giving that sort of signal, it makes it look like you don't really care, you don't really want to be there, you're not too interested, and it gives a real negative impression of you as a referee. So like I said earlier, it could be the most boring game in the world. You're looking forward to getting home for your Sunday roast on a Sunday, but you need to make it look like you're still there, you're still interested. Give those big positive arm signals to sell those decisions, and again, create that positive impression of yourself as the referee. Okay, so in this clip, you see a really good example around sort of communicating with players during open play, really. So just saw in the clip, the blue team were attacking, and the blue number 7 does get fouled, very very sort of minor foul, probably more extensive than anything else. And the blue team play on, get a shot on goal, and it goes wide. What some of you might have seen is that after that ball had gone out for the goal kick, the referee actually started to make their way over to that blue number 7, and communicate with the player saying, sorry, obviously we don't know exactly what was said, but it would be long lines of, sorry, I missed that player, I'll try and miss it next time. Or it might be the sort of thing is, don't worry, I've seen it, didn't think it was a foul, but I've seen it. Just making the player aware that you are watching, because otherwise this player could, potentially run into the referee saying, oh ref, that was a foul, how have you not given it? Or similarly, there could be a foul later on which is similar, which you have given. The player say, "Oh ref, why is that a foul? When it was on me, that you didn't give a foul for it." Whereas this way here, you're saying to the player, "Yes, I've seen it." You could be admitting, saying, "Yep, sorry, I've missed it, my fault." Or you could just be saying, "I've seen it, don't think it's a foul in my opinion," but at least you're acknowledging that something has happened, and hopefully that should appease the player a little bit more, and calm them down, rather than them being sort of agitated the rest of the game, thinking, "Oh, the ref's got something against me because he's not given a foul against me," or whatever it might be. So in this clip here, looking at the communication of the referee, good arm signal, it signifies it's a corner. It's clearly a corner, but that's the key thing here. It's very, very clearly a corner kick. So as you may have heard, the referee use their whistle to signify it's a corner kick. Nothing wrong with using your whistle to back up your decision making. However, you should really only be using it for your contentious decisions. So, if this was one of those ones where people aren't too sure if it's a corner kick or a goal kick, this is where you want to get that whistle out to sell to everyone that this is a corner kick or it is a goal kick. The reason for that being is that, if you use your whistle for every single decision, it's going to lessen the impact of it. So when you've got to make that big decision, for a red card offence, yellow card, whoever it might be, but you've been using your whistle throughout the whole game, the players aren't going to be as receptive to it as if, you used it sparingly. So, overall, positive arm swing from the referee, but just think, do I need to blow my whistle for this situation? Is it obvious to everyone? Because as soon as you blow that whistle, you're putting all the attention on yourself as a referee, of which, if you blow the whistle for that situation, players can look around, say what the referee want. Oh, so it's a corner. I know it's a corner. Why is the referee telling me that again? So think about when you need to use your whistle and use it very sparingly to maximise its effect. So I'll pause it there. It's quite a long clip. So again, this example here, you've got the blue 7 and the red and blue 3, and sort of battling out on the wing. No problems with players battling for the ball. They've got their right to. But again, there's plenty of opportunities in the build up to that big foul, where the referee could have given a cheap free kick. This is what he's tried to do, I think. However, he's come in a little bit too late when the ball is in open play. It's in sort of no man's land, as it were. Of which the thing to be wary of as referees. If the ball's uncontested, it's running loose, and you've got two players going for the ball, there's going to be one outcome, and that's going to be a big crunching tackle. So referees got involved a little bit too late there. But But again, proactive communication from not only the referee but also the assistant referee, saying arms down, no foul, whatever it might be, to try and prevent the situation from occurring. But then getting involved a little bit earlier. Because if the referee had given that defensive free kick, a little bit earlier to stop that ball getting released, this situation wouldn't have occurred. Similarly, if the referee had given a cheap free kick on the halfway line for the foul, again, no one would have complained about it. Whereas now, from nothing essentially, we've now got this big situation around a mass confrontation. The referee's now got to manage and obviously give what I'm sure will be some red and yellow cards as a result. So in terms of review, so our on-field proactive communication is all around preventing players from getting cautioned. Some players we won't be able to prevent. Sometimes players will commit that yellow card offence, or they will give you dissent, no matter what you try and do to manage that situation. Also allows you to prevent possible fouls from occurring in the first place. So if you look at that Aveley game, I think it was clip number 2 or number 3, give those soft free kicks in the build-up, and that way it will stop the big foul going in and the mass confrontation starting in the first place. Not always the case, because sometimes players will still take that vendetta. If a foul happens, no matter how soft you give it, the player might still react still. But again, you can try and prevent that from happening in the first place. But also think about your communication to sell those decisions. Some people might be confused or surprised when you give something, whereas if you're communicating with a clear arm signal, good bit of voice in there to back it up, for example, that way it should stop any confusion or any sort of surprises that people might have. So on to the final section around after the game, managers and coaches being the prime example. They're very, very passionate about the game. Depending on what level you operate at, they are volunteers, or sometimes they are paid quite a bit of money to do what they do. So they're passionate about the game. They want their team to do the very best they possibly can, and obviously at the end of the day, they want to win every game they've got. So how can we best manage these characters? Within football you get some big characters, you get some big egos. So how can we as referees appropriately manage them to diffuse any sort of confrontational situations after a game? So four key points really. Firstly is listening. So quite a lot of time, referees will be of the impression, I'm the referee, I know best, you're going to listen to me. But it's not the case. It needs to be a two-way street of respect, really. Again, some referees will say, no, you've not shown me any respect today, Mr. Manager or Mrs. Manager, whoever it might be, so I'm not going to show you any respect either. But again, no matter how disrespectful the manager's being to you at the end of the game, you still need to be listening to what they've got to say. So then, as we'll touch on later, you can then give them a suitable response if you need to give them a response. It's about being polite. This manager might have wound you up all game. You might be really, really frustrated with them, really, really annoyed with them because of their behaviour. But again, you've still got to be the bigger person and you've got to be polite with them come the end of the day. Using law, so really, really important. As referees, we should know what law says and we need to know how to use it appropriately. But also, we've got to look at how we can be in control of the situation. We don't want the managers and coaches to drive the conversation for us. We need to be in control still. So looking at post-match. So we've got a quick video here. In a moment, which we'll look at post-match, sort of directly post-match. But as we all know, not everyone's going to be happy with the decisions you give during the game. You're not going to please all 22 players. Never going to happen, unfortunately. As much as we'd like to, no matter how good a game you think you've had, there's always going to be one person, two people who will think otherwise. So you need to take control of the situation whilst remaining professional and respectful at all times. So this is a video from the Premier League, which some of us might have seen in the past. With Everton, with the Everton manager. So take a little look and see what happens. So you've got Chris Kavanagh, Premier League referee. He's dealing with a character within football. The manager's not very happy about the game. He's trying to argue with the referee, getting quite close to him, trying to intimidate him a little bit. However, Chrissy stayed very calm, stayed very professional. He's not gone toe to toe with this manager to try and confront them. He's kept his distance still, and then he's issued the correct sanction in a very calm and controlled manner as well. So again, really, really good example of how to potentially manage these managers come post match. So it's all about remaining calm. So a couple of don'ts. Don't mirror the coach/manager. So if they're getting aggravated and getting abusive towards you, don't do the same back to them. It's really important you don't do that. But similarly, sometimes you do want to mirror them. So taking the example in a changing room. If the manager takes a seat to come have a chat with you after, you take a seat as well. Reason for that, similarly, if they're standing, don't you say sitting down, you stand up as well. And the reason for that is, thinking about how that looks. So if you've got the manager sitting down and you're standing above them, it almost looks like you're giving them a telling off. You think you're above them, from a psychological level. It makes it like you're in control. You're gonna sort of boss the situation, and potentially, the manager might not be very happy with that. Similarly, if you're sitting down, the manager's standing up, it looks as though the manager's got control of the situation, and they're, giving you a telling off, they're above you, they're better than you, wherever it might be. So really, really important where possible, if the manager's sitting down, you sit down with them as well. Similarly, if the manager's standing, you stand up as well. We don't want you engaging in close contact communication. So, we've heard of referees squaring up to managers after the game, not very professional. Certainly, it's something that we do not want to see our referees doing. So as referee, if the manager is getting too close to you, nothing wrong with taking a step back. You could take a step back from the situation, saying, please, don't come any further, don't come any closer. And you can then potentially issue further sort of action as a result of that. If you feel they're intimidating you by continuously coming closer and ignoring you, you could issue a yellow card. That's a power you've got as referees now, to issue yellow and red cards to managers and members of the technical area. Don't allow yourself to get caught in the heat at the moment. As referees, we're very, very passionate. We all love what we do. We're proud of what we do. And sometimes when someone's criticising us, we don't take it in the best of ways. We get quite emotional about the situation. That can often lead to us saying things which we might regret or might not necessarily mean to say. So you make sure you try and compose yourself in what could be a very difficult situation. And looking at some do's, maintain positive body language. So look at the clip with Chris Kavanagh a moment ago. As he was getting a hammering from the manager, did you see him sort of slouch and sort of get curl up into his own little shell? You don't. Chris keeps his chest out, head up high, and has that real positive body language to try and manage that situation. But also really important is to take your time when responding. And think about, do you even need to respond in the first place? So, if you respond quickly, you might end up saying something that you don't mean to say or you didn't really want to say. But also you might end up digging yourself a bigger hole because you're responding to something that you didn't actually have to respond to in the first place. You might be one of those comments from the manager where you just ignore it, park it, and move on. Tip number 2 around IFAB. So hopefully everyone's aware of who IFAB are. The organisation that writes the laws of the game. So, law is your get out of jail free card, essentially. If you can quote law, managers, coaches, players they can't come back to you with anything. If you send a player off and you say, he's jumped in 2 foot at the player, it's a red card. The manager come back saying, oh well, he's not used 2 feet, he's jumped in, but he's only used 1 foot. Sure, it's a yellow card instead. Whereas, as a referee, if you can say, I think the player's come in at speed, he's caught the player quite high up his leg. He's taken, he's had sort of not taken into account player safety. He's endangering the safety of his opponent by making that tackle, and that tackle is excessive than what is required. By using those keywords of quoting law, you're ticking those boxes around what law says. So therefore, the manager can't say, well, it wasn't excessive, because you've got that argument backed up by using law to sell that decision further. But the key thing is you don't want to be a smarty pants about it. You don't want to be able to quote law word for word, because the thing is, if you are being a smarty pants with it, it will frustrate the managers and players even further by saying, "Oh, this referee is a bit of a know-it-all. They're a bit arrogant." When in reality, you might just be trying to explain what law says. But again, think about how that's perceived by managers and by players. How do you appropriately use law to back up your case? To back up the decision that you've given. And then finally, it's around game empathy. You've got to show you're human at the end of the day. Admit that you've made mistakes. Some managers say, "Oh, that's never a penalty, ref. What are you thinking?" And, at the game, you might say to him, "Yeah, you know what, manager? I got that wrong. It wasn't a penalty. I can only apologise." Sometimes, this is the difference between a great manager and a good manager. A great manager will realise that you've made a mistake and think, "You know what, ref's made a mistake. My players have made mistakes today. Let's park it and move on." Whereas, some managers will use it against you. But again, really important that you're human and you admit to these mistakes. Show a bit of empathy and understanding for the situation. A manager might come into the game really, really irate. They've lost the game 1-0 because you've given a penalty to the opposition. They're in the relegation battle now. Show a bit of empathy. Say to them, understand you're in a tough position at the moment. You're in a relegation battle. I've seen it as a penalty for X, Y, Z reasons. If you've not seen it as a penalty, I can only apologise that you've not quite seen it the same way that I have. But again, show a little bit of understanding for the situation they're in, because it could help in control and calm that manager down. But also, really, really important as you get to the higher levels of the game, don't throw your colleagues under the bus to make your great escape. You'll hear so many different stories around in sort of high levels within the game of the referee saying, "Oh, my assistant gave me that decision," just to try and get a higher mark from the observer. You're the leader of the team at the end of the day. Take that responsibility on board. And if even if your assistant referee has given you the penalty decision, at the end of the day, you're the referee. You're the one that's backed that decision. So you need to face the consequences for it. Because ultimately your assistant referees, they're your junior colleagues. So you should know everything that's expected of you as a referee. And again, as that leader of the team, you need to lead that team and take the brunt for whatever comes towards you, whether it's your fault and responsibility or not. You really need to take that for yourself. So in summary, communication is key. You've got to be proactive and think ahead. Make sure you know where you're going. You've got the communication with the clubs in advance. Control the small things to make the bigger things easier to manage. So by giving those cheap free kicks to prevent the big mass confrontations from occurring, or might be continuously communicating with players. So that way, when you give a foul, you're not then going to get the dissent as a result of it. Using law to manage your confrontations. Make sure you know law to back you up in those situations there. But also be big enough to admit when you've got something wrong. Really, really important. As referees, some of us think, we're perfect, we don't get anything wrong, but we are still human at the end of the day. We'll make mistakes, we'll get things wrong. Really, really important that as referees we own up to those and admit them. At the same time, I'm not saying don't admit every single thing you get wrong in a game, but if there's a key decision which has really sort of infuriated a team, there's nothing wrong with saying, I've got that wrong today. So very, very quickly as well, depending on the time when you're watching this recording, the Grassroots Awards nominations are currently open for Grassroots Match Finisher of the Year. So if there's a referee that you know and that you've worked with, that you think is a really good ambassador for the game in terms of refereeing, and they do a lot of work for grassroots football, please feel free to nominate them. The link's at the bottom of the screen. But if you need the link, please let myself or Lucas know, and we can send it over to you separately. So that's very much the end of the session now. So thank you very much for watching along in your own time at home. If you do have any questions or want anything expanding on, myself and Lucas are still in the office. Well, I say office, we are at home, depending on when you're listening to the recording. So still pick up the phone to us, drop us an email, and we'll be more than happy to help you as much as we possibly can. So thank you again for listening, and I hope that you've enjoyed the session. It's been of use.